All right, we're 3 minutes past the hour. Looks like we got a steady, intimate, tiny but mighty group here. Loving seeing all the introductions, so I think we can go ahead and officially get started. So, welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Drew Scammell, and I'm a program associate with the Inclusive STEM Ecosystems for Equity and Diversity, or ICE program at the American Association for the Advancement of Science, commonly known as AAAS. On behalf of AAAS and the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program at NSF, I'd like to welcome you to today's NSF Proposal Preparation webinar for research experiences in STEM settings, or RESS, and additional funding opportunities with Noyce, featuring Noyce Program Lead Dr. Jennifer Ellis and NSF Program Director Dr. Josephine Rodriguez. Before I hand it over to our NSF colleagues and get to what y'all are here for today, I do have a few quick housekeeping notes. This presentation is being recorded, and that recording will be made available in the coming weeks on the NSF Noyce website at nsfnoyce.org. You'll also receive an email with the link to recording when it's available, in addition to the slides, which will also be posted to our website soon after this presentation. And additionally, we have closed captioning for this session. You can download and view the full transcript by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And with that, that's all for me, and I'll now hand it over to our wonderful NSF colleagues for today's webinar.
Great, thanks, Drew, and thanks, Betty from AAAS for hosting these webinars for the broader Noyce community, and for those of you who are interested in helping to enhance STEM teacher development and just really helping us spread the Noyce love across the country. So we're thankful for you taking the time out to join us. I'm Jennifer Ellis. I'm the lead of the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program, and I am accompanied by Dr. Josephine Rodriguez, who is a Noyce Program Director. And we'll talk to you today about the research experience in STEM settings and other funding opportunities in Noyce. Next slide, please. We first wanted to bring you greetings from not just the National Science Foundation, but our Division of Undergraduate Education, which we refer to as DUE, which is housed in the Directorate of STEM Education, which we refer to as EDU. And we have 5 core programs that we fund: ATE, IUS, and then HSI, Noyce, and STEM. And so those are our core programs, and we work across the directorate as well to support other initiatives within NSF, but all really focusing on how we can help enhance and strengthen STEM education at 2- and 4-year at colleges. And with Noyce, there's an asterisk. Although we're in the Division of Undergraduate Education, we do have opportunities for our in-service teachers as well as those who are pursuing their masters. But we wanted to bring you greetings from the larger entity as well. Next slide, please. And to help us to get to know you a little bit better, there's a poll here. So if you could take maybe a minute or maybe 90 seconds to take this poll so we can get a better idea of who you are and how we can best customize this talk per your areas of interest and familiarity with Noyce and the topics we have planned to cover today. Okay, I think we have a good idea of where you all are. So there's no one in here who is very familiar with the research experience in STEM settings, so that's a great thing. Not too familiar with conference or fundamental or supplemental stuff. Okay, great. So you're in the right room. And so what we have planned to do today is should work well for hopefully your needs and your interests. Next slide, please. So I wanted to bring to your attention, and I apologize for the toddler who just woke up from a nap, but the new solicitation was relatively new. We made some updates last year for 23-586. The deadline is Tuesday, August the 27th. And it's going to be the last Tuesday of August thereafter. And so anytime you have a solicitation, Noyce is no exception. When you see last Tuesday of August thereafter, that's really what that means. And so if you don't see 2024, 2025 on the solicitation and it's the current one, then it's your job. We're putting the onus on you to determine what is that last Tuesday of that particular year. But this is the solicitation that the research experience in STEM settings has been added to, and it'll help, and that's what we're using as the basis of this today's discussion. Next slide, please. So online it may say 21st, but look at the year. So it may not, I don't know if the 2024 year is listed, so it may be August 21st of 2021. I'm not sure of the date that it says. I don't have the solicitation in front of me. But this is the Noyce team. We're a great team, we're a lean team, and we're here to help you. So if you have interest in the research experience in STEM settings, really reaching out to me, Josephine, or Julio Soto, or Leah McAllister Shields will be your best bet, because we are the ones who are going to try to focus more specifically on the research experience in STEM settings, but any of the program officers in Noyce will be able to help you and to direct you to someone who could best support you as you kind of move forward with the preparation process. Next slide, please. So the goals of Noyce are four major goals: to address the critical need of recruiting, preparing, and retaining K-12 STEM teachers and teacher leaders in high-need school districts; to support talented STEM undergraduate majors and professionals to become K-12 STEM teachers in high-need school districts; support experienced exemplary K-12 STEM teachers to become teacher leaders in high-need school districts; and to support research on the effectiveness and retention of K-12 STEM teachers in high-need school districts. And so we're very intentional about who the target audience is and where we would prefer them to work. And as you can see, high-need school district is really where we're focusing that development for and support for STEM teachers. Next slide, please. And as mentioned, we have the 4 tracks that are listed here. And then we also, if you have interest, and we've had tons of webinars that specifically focus on these tracks, as well as capacity building. And capacity building is designed for those of you who have interest in one of the 4 tracks, but not sure you have the infrastructure, or there's a true need, and you actually have enough participants who would be willing to engage and participate in one of the tracks. And so a capacity building project, which is $100,000, may be of interest to you to explore if your institution is truly Noyce ready. So that may be an option for you as well. But I wanted to give you an overview of Noyce before we talk specifically about research experiences in STEM settings. So next slide, please. And so this is a relatively new initiative for us. And so we were looking at ways in which we can engage the field, provide teachers with different types of experiences, our pre-service and in-service teachers. And so in the next slide, you'll see that we really wanted to make sure we focus on what does STEM look like, and what does STEM look like for teachers. So you can kind of click through this, and when we think about STEM, it's always, the Albert Einstein and, the traditional version of what STEM looks like, but also to help our students realize that their teachers are STEM professionals as well, and making sure that our students who are pre-service or teacher candidates also view themselves as STEM professionals as well as STEM teachers, and so that they don't have to lose their STEM identity because they're entering into a classroom. And so that really is why the research experiences in STEM settings was developed, to provide our pre-service and our in-service teachers with the experience in the summertime, and or however you choose to structure it, to be in the field as a STEM professional. Next slide, please. And so here, if you look at the solicitation, 23-586, this is what's included: providing authentic STEM research experiences, and you've got to say research. If you say research, then we're going to just send it back. but it's got to be research experiences, and that's how you know it's authentic. Providing authentic STEM research experiences and opportunities for pre-service or teacher candidates, depending on what you call them at your institutions, and in-service Noyce and non-Noyce STEM teachers. And so we wanted to make sure it was clear that this is an inclusive opportunity for all of your pre-service or teacher candidates on your campus that are they could be Noyce eligible, but they don't have to be a Noyce recipient or a Noyce scholar or Noyce fellow to participate in this experience. The research settings may vary. They could be at a national laboratories like NASA, but they're not limited to those particular centers. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what these opportunities could look like, these STEM settings. But the research should serve as a basis for teachers to create learning experiences that they can be used in their K-12 classroom. So we want to make sure that they can bring that real world experience of being in the field to their classes. And so that can come in project-based learning opportunities that they develop and lesson plans and things of that nature to really engage students and enhance their STEM learning experience. Next slide, please. So again, the research settings, they could be national laboratories like NASA centers, they could be institutions of higher education. So collaborating with some of your STEM faculty member on your campus, corporate research settings, nonprofit partners, really thinking about what does it look like, and depending on where you want to, your focus of your nonprofit partners could be zoos and museums and children's learning spaces that are designed for that piece that really allow for the opportunity for these teachers to conduct some level of STEM research. There's a critical need that we're really focusing on in quantum computing and quantum science, robotics, artificial intelligence, microelectronics, and machine learning, computer science, data analytics, and we're not limited to those, but as you know, Noyce in particular has been named in the CHIPS and Science Act. And so anything that you could do around that space would really be great to really help drive home the importance of that piece of the microelectronics element that is really highlighted in the CHIPS and Science Act. But you're not limited to that, but those are some of our critical need areas that we are focusing on. Next slide, please. So for your teacher requirements, they're in-service teachers, but they do not need to possess a STEM degree, but they must be certified to teach math. They must be certified to teach math, science, engineering, or computer science to participate. Your K-12 in-service teachers must be currently employed as a teacher in a high-need school district. And so we know the definition of high-need school district for Noyce is that at least one of the schools has to be a Title I school for the district to qualify. And so as you're preparing your materials, making sure that you're thinking about who are your collaborating partners and what school districts should you best target that would have teachers that fit this category. And for your pre-service teacher or your teacher candidates, they must be pursuing a STEM degree and not a secondary education or a secondary math degree unless it's a dual degree. But their pathway has to be a STEM content major that is will earn their teacher certification. And so they don't have to be the Noyce scholar, but they need to be in a Noyce eligible program to be considered for participation. Next slide, please. So the budget implications, and so we're allowing, oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, budget implications, I'm sorry. The slides are off on my end. So you have, they range, right? So we don't have a set number that it has to be. And I would be remiss to say, before you even start this process down the budget line, it's for the research experience in STEM settings, you should submit a one-pager. And we say that all the time, one-pager, and not everybody even knows what that means. And so that is like your project summary. And so that's an overview, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs of an overview, 1 paragraph that highlights your intellectual merit, and one paragraph that highlights your broader impact. And you'll send that to a program officer, and we'll provide our email addresses again at the end. And you'll send that, and that will start the conversation. And based off of that one pager, then you will get approval or may have to make some revisions, and then you will start the process of writing your full proposal, which would include your budget. And so you can work up a budget before you get approval from the financial, from your program officer, the program director. But the budget implications are typically the project trains up to 5 years for a budget of $750,000. No, this is a different, I see there's a question about the split. Is it 60-40%? This is a different initiative. So this is not a scholarship-based program. And so you have different ways of which participant support is going to look for this particular initiative. You're welcome. Next slide, please. So for in your proposal, we want to make sure that you think about your pre-service or your teacher candidates and how you are going to recruit them. We really want you to be clear on who are your target populations in that area. And, can you have a research experience in STEM settings that is just pre-service? Yes, you can. Can you have a proposal that includes pre-service and in-service teachers? Yes. Or just in service? Yes. We love, because we are in the Division of Undergraduate Education, if we could give this experience to undergraduate students, we would love for their inclusion in your proposal. But you're not restricted to just the pre-service teachers or your teacher candidates. But make sure it's very clear that you have a selection process, a recruitment and selection process for your potential participants in your program. Some planned research and mentoring activities, and within the mentoring, making sure that there is some training for mentorship. Who is going to be providing the mentorship and how will they be trained? Then also looking at the activities. What are they going to include? What is the schedule going to be for the teachers? Are they going to have some professional development before they start their research experience? What are their, is this going to be just in the summer? Are they going to have professional development or opportunities for them to even disseminate their work throughout the duration of the project? And what is the plan? If you're doing 3 years, 5 years, what is the justification for doing it for that period of time? And what are the desired outcomes? What do you want your participants to get? What do you want their students, the school district? What is the benefit of having this infusion of funds and providing this opportunity for these STEM teachers? What is the outcome that you anticipate? And so really thinking through what is the experience going to be, and those outcomes is really critical in your proposal preparation. Next slide, please. And so another document that may be helpful for you is that there is a Noyce FAQ that go along with our solicitation. And one of the questions that was listed there, how and when should proposals for research experiences in STEM settings be submitted? And I mentioned this before, proposals must be submitted to the Noyce program officer only. Proposals may be submitted to the Noyce program only after consultation with and consent of a Noyce program officer. And so we talked about submitting that one pager. You'll probably have a Zoom meeting, and then we'll have a consultation, and then we'll determine what your next steps will be. Making sure that you follow the guidance and the PAPG. And for you all, it would be, if you're planning on submitting this August, it would be the 24-1 that will go into effect in May, and making sure you follow that process. The research experience in STEM settings does have a rolling deadline, but I would encourage you that there are times when it's better to roll than others, just based off of our own workload. So submitting in August is a great time, or around that August September, maybe even squeezing in October are good times to submit your research experience for STEM settings full proposal. So having conversations before them is helpful, but submitting it in that window is best or better. But you can submit it anytime, because right now we still have a rolling deadline for the RESS opportunities. Next slide, please. What are acceptable STEM research areas or disciplines for research experiences? So making sure that there is some alignment with the Noyce eligible STEM majors. And so although NSF has a very comprehensive definition of STEM, Noyce is a little bit more limited. And so even checking the FAQs for how we define STEM will be helpful. And then we did identify the critical need areas that are kind of focused around the microelectronics, the AI, data analytics, or can you infuse or integrate biology and AI and to create a research experience in STEM settings for teachers. But those are just some ideas that you may want to consider. Yes. And so, just making sure you check the zip codes that are Noyce approved. Anything in that area, it's fine. So you don't have to do these, CHIPS and Science Act types of disciplinary areas. They could be traditional in the form of a traditional chemistry, math, research experience. Okay, next slide, please. For some of you, you may say, this actually sounds familiar. I've had an award or submitted a proposal, something similar. And so you may be familiar with NSF's research experience for teachers or the research experience for undergraduates. And so you have the RET, and then you also have an REU. And so the Noyce research experience in STEM settings is kind of like meets at the intersection, where you can have an experience for teachers as well as pre-service teachers within the same project. And so if you're looking for a little bit more structure, I know in the Noyce solicitation, we spend a lot of time talking about our various tracks, and you may feel that you need a little bit more information on, what does it look like? Some other examples, you may want to look at how an RET or an REU is structured to help you better define those elements, the activities, the deliverables, or even looking to see at different abstracts. Because this is the research experience in STEM settings is relatively new. So there's not a lot of projects that have been funded that you can kind of use as a model, but using the RET and the REU may help you kind of figure out, oh, I forgot we might need to provide housing for these students. And so I need to add that in the budget. And so really thinking through and using them as your model may be helpful. And so what does that look like? What is the duration of a project? We don't require a specific amount, but I know in an RET and an REU, they're very clear on the number of weeks it needs to be. And so we allow you some flexibility, but at least you'll have an idea of what some other programs that are similar in structure and initiative focus on. Providing, stipends and things of that nature. So really thinking through what does that look like for a student stipend versus a teacher stipend, an undergraduate student stipend versus a in-service teacher stipend, and what's an appropriate budget. So I know, like, for example, an REU maybe for 3 years for $350,000. And so really just looking through and kind of helping you gauge and working with the grants folks on your office, and there may be someone on your campus who has an RET or an REU that may be a model for you as well. Next slide, please. And so additional funding opportunities in Noyce, you could click to the next slide. So in the solicitation, we also talk about workshop and conference proposals. And so for some, you may not even be aware that you can request funding to do a conference or a pre-conference workshop or something of that nature. And it really is to address diversity and equity and inclusion in STEM teaching and learning, including recruitment and retention efforts. That's where we're really hoping that the workshops and conference proposals focus on exploring strategies to and to empower faculty and other stakeholders to create systemic change that improves diversity, equity, and inclusion in undergraduate STEM teacher education, focusing on enhancing K-12 teaching reflects modern pedagogical teaching practices, and involving sustaining collaborations, and looking for just different ways in which you can have those collaborations support and develop teachers and teacher leaders. And so the funding around that varies, but similar to with the research experience in STEM settings, making sure you first contact a program officer and asking them and submitting that one page, or I have a conference idea, a workshop idea around this. Do you think this is something that is feasible for Noyce? Next slide, please. And I see some questions where I'm going to pause in a few seconds to address some of these questions. If I can see them quickly, and the text is small enough, I can kind of catch it while I'm talking. But I think I might have one or two more slides before I'll take a break. But for the conference proposals, the budget, you'll submit that to a Noyce program officer, and so they typically range from $25,000 to $100,000. And again, making sure you look at the PAPG 24-1 is the one that's going to be more applicable to you. Will start May 20th, I think, of 2024. And so, you'll submit a budget and all of those things. And so really thinking about who are your target audience, how are you going to diversify the field with your participant list? What are the outcomes? And so for us, especially in Noyce, just saying you're having a workshop and there's no outcomes, there's no deliverables. How are these pre-service, in-service teachers or whomever from the field in STEM education and STEM teacher preparation that you're choosing to convene, what are they going to get out of this? What can they bring back to their respective classrooms, campuses, districts that they couldn't have done without you convening them? And so making sure it's very clear that this is something that's very critical and very timely, and that you have the expertise to implement this is what we're looking for in these conference and workshop proposals. Next slide, please. And so supplement awards, and I looked from the survey, there weren't too many of you who had a supplement or knew of a supplement, and I will, in full disclosure, I have been a PI on several NSF awards, and it wasn't until I was transitioning from my role as a rotating program officer, transitioning to my role as a rotating program officer and was handing off my NSF awards to my colleagues at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, that I was even aware that you could request a supplement award. And so there have been some misconceptions about what does that mean. And so there are times where, in Noyce in particular, we strongly encourage those PIs that have especially a Track 1 award, who say they're going to provide scholarships to 25 undergraduate STEM students. And let's say they recruited and supported 25 scholars in year 4, and they still have 2 more years on their project. We will gladly provide them a supplement and put more money in their F1 line to support new scholars, right? And so that's one supplemental request that's within the scope of the project, right? And so it's not that they want to do something completely different. And I have some dumps over here. Let's say you submitted another Track 1 award and you wanted to do something different, and you still had money in your current award, you were declined, and you're like, oh, I want to test this out to see if it's going to work. Let me request a supplement to do that piece that I said I want to do in this award that was declined. And then now I have the data to justify it. No, we're not providing funding for pilot work where that's concerned. And we're not providing funding for you to do things that go beyond the scope of your work. One of the cases that a supplement that I have been working with the PI over is they had a postdoc, and the postdoc had a baby and went on maternity leave. And so when you're on maternity leave, they were still drawing down on a grant to support that postdoc, as they should. But that work still needed to get accomplished. And so once the postdoc returned from maternity leave, they wanted a supplement to cover that cost. And so we were able to kind of work things around. And typically, PIs are able to move money around their budget because you have more autonomy than you know. And we're able to do that, but providing a supplement where you can see where it says career life balance supplement funding request. Those are those types of things. Those career life balance requests. Those are things that we would gladly consider and provide supplements for. In unusual circumstances, small amounts of supplement funding and up to 6 months of additional support may be requested to assure adequate completion of the original scope of work. And so that's what's stated in the PAPG. And so that's really what supplement awards are around. Not doing new things, but if there were small things that needed to be done that you could not rearrange your budget to do, then that's what the supplement award would do. But most PIs aren't fully aware that they truly have the autonomy to move things around. And they may actually have money in their budget to do that, but feel nervous that oh no, I can't move it from this line to that line. But things change once you're awarded. And so maybe you thought you were going to spend $5,000 in materials, but the teachers are saying, in our school, we don't use those things. And so we don't need whatever it is that you had in that materials line. Can you then redirect that $5,000 to do something different that would cover what it is you're going to request from your program officer as a supplement? Yes. So thinking about that and having conversations with your program officer will let you know whether or not requesting a supplement award is something that you really need to do. Next slide, please. And I'm almost done talking and I can take a break and we'll do some Q&A. And so there is a procedure on how to request a supplement, but I think before you formally do this procedure that's listed here, have a conversation with your cognitive program officer. So they can help you determine whether or not what you want to do is truly needed for this work. So I'm going to open up the floor now to some Q&A. I think that's what's next on the agenda. And we'll look in the chat now.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I'm reading, I answered will the budget follow a 60-40 split? No, but I mean, if you look at the, for research experience in STEM settings, will it probably end up be 60-40? Probably, because by the time you pay funding for housing, stipends, the majority of the money should go to the participants because you're providing an experience for them. But the split doesn't have to be that 60-40, that hard F1 over H has to be 60%. No. Yes, and so unlike the REU, and thank you for Jennifer for asking that question, can the research experience be our own students at our institution? Yes, they can be your students at your own institutions, and or you can collaborate with other institutions that are in your area. But you can keep this more of a local spend, which is different than an REU, where they're very restrictive on how many participants from your local institution can participate. Can the research experience be a STEM education research study? Jennifer, can you unmute to elaborate a little bit more?
Sure. So it would be research on how people learn physics concepts or chemistry concepts, best ways to understand some particular concepts. So it's education research in the field of STEM, so in the areas of STEM.
I think that's a little bit different than what we intended, right? So I think you can do that piece, yes, but they should have a physics research experience, and then maybe their professional development is around what you're focusing on. So they will be able to take that and then translate that into developing a robust project-based or problem-based learning experience for their students, lesson plans, something like that. But being able to take that research experience and then from your professional development to do that piece, that's where your professional development would come into play.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then I think there was one, I think we got those questions. Are there any other questions? Feel free to unmute. No? Okay, if not, we'll have at least two more opportunities, but we'll pause like we have now for you all to ask more questions. And so Josephine is going to kind of walk you through, if you're new to just writing proposals for NSF, she can walk you through these next couple of slides, and we'll kind of tag team here.
All right, thank you. And next slide, please. Okay, so I mean, so this might be a kind of review for you, but really one really important component of the proposal is that one-page summary. And the way that one page actually physically has to fit on a single page. And it's 3 paragraphs. And you've got the overview, which is the first paragraph, and very specific things must appear in there. So the first sentence must indicate which specific track of the proposal you are proposing in. And then literally the next sentence is name of all institutions, partners, including high school districts and nonprofit organizations as appropriate that are involved in the project you're proposing. The second paragraph is on intellectual merit, and this is how important is this work and how well designed is the project. So intellectual merit is basically like, what are we learning from this project? What can we learn from this project? And the third paragraph of this one-page summary is broader impacts. And what is the benefit to this work, to STEM education and to society? And both intellectual merit and broader impacts are weighed equally. So it's not like one's more important than the other. We instruct our reviewers in DUE to weigh both of those equally. So they're both as important to each other. They're both as important to your proposal. Next slide, please. Okay, so your project description, of course, you're going to read the solicitation very, very, very carefully. And of course, that's NSF 23-586. And you're going to have to do all of this, and it has to fit within the 15 pages. So within that 15 pages, you actually also need a separate paragraph on broader impacts. And a separate, so NSF no longer requires a separate section entitled intellectual merit. Jennifer, maybe you can correct me. I would put that in anyway, like a separate paragraph in intellectual merit. Was there some instructions from higher?
It's just according to the PAPG. So although it says that, and we've got plenty of questions, because when you go further down in the presentation, they're gonna like, it's gonna be, it seems odd, but that's what it says, right? So you don't have to, but you're not going to be penalized, and you may be rewarded if you do. So you don't have to, and I don't know why we don't make the news, we just report it.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you, Jennifer. And so of course you've got within this 15 pages, scope of recruitment and selection, and recruitment and selection is really, really important. I've seen proposals that didn't fare so well because they had a weak recruiting plan. So make sure that you have that well developed. You've got project administration, teacher induction and development, degree preparation or a leadership program, cost sharing, project activities and supports, monitoring and compliance, evaluation, dissemination, collaborations, and then if applicable, results from prior support. So you don't have a lot of room, we only have 15 pages, but we do want all of those sections. Next slide. All right, so some suggested supplemental documents include letters of collaboration. So for pre-service teacher and inclusion, the deans of both participating the STEM college or the education college school. So if you are sometimes generally you've got education departments in your STEM departments that aren't in the same college. They could be, but if they are in separate ones, please include letters from the dean from both of those entities. A superintendent of the partnering school district or a comparable school district administrator, research and research setting partners. Supplementary document sections may only include letters of collaboration if applicable, biographical sketches of the project's independent evaluator or external evaluator, postdoctoral mentoring plan if it's applicable, and of course, you need a data management plan. Next slide. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about merit review. Next slide. So again, the NSF merit review criteria has two components. You've got intellectual merit, and intellectual merit is what is the potential for the proposed activity to advance knowledge and understanding within its own fields or across different fields, as well as broader impacts. What is the potential for the proposed activity to benefit society or advance specific desired societal outcomes? So those are equally important. And we tell our reviewers to weigh those both equally. Next slide, please. All right, so a little more about intellectual merit and broader impacts. So to what extent do the proposed activities suggest and explore creative, original, or potentially transformative concepts? Is the plan for carrying out the proposed activities well-reasoned, well-organized, and based on sound rationale? Does the plan incorporate a mechanism to assess success? How well qualified is the individual team or organization to conduct the proposed activities? And are there adequate resources available to the PI, either at the home organization or institution or through collaborations, to carry out the proposed activities? So again, this is how we are evaluating their proposals, and we do this as program officers, but also we have our panelists are also given these guidelines to review your proposals. Next slide. All right, so some general tips. Be aware of prior and ongoing projects and advances in the field and discuss the results. So that ties into the second point, which is cite the literature. Include timelines and benchmarks in your plan for independent feedback. Propose a cost-effective but high-impact project. Another general tip for success is make sure you have included all required details and sections. And also, if you are resubmitting a previously declined proposal, consider the reviewer's feedback and do not resubmit the declined proposal without making really substantial changes. So don't just resubmit again, really take in consideration that feedback. Put yourself in the reviewer's place and or have someone else read the proposal. Provide supporting details to substantiate identified partnerships, like the letters, and align the requested budget with the scale and the scope of the work. And of course, call or email your cognizant Noyce program officers. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a question and answer part again. So looking at the chat. Okay, so not sure if we properly.
That was me. I'm not sure if we did. Just making sure that evaluation is important to make sure you clearly articulate that you have provided a way in which to measure the impact and the success of your project, and to see what that looks like. Does that mean you need to hire an evaluation firm that's going to take 20% of your budget? No. But you can have an external evaluator who may be internal to the institution, but external to the project that you add, an advisory board. Those types of things would be helpful to include in a research experience in STEM settings proposal. Really looking at ways that you can also disseminate this information. And so because you're having pre-service or in-service teachers do research, look for other opportunities for them to share their research, not just at the end of the summer, but are there ways that they can go to conferences to share? And so all of those things, that's why your budget's going to look different. So I know the question, I keep going back to that 60 to 40. It may not look like a traditional Noyce track 1, track 2, or track 3, 60%, but that travel budget for F and F2 for participant support travel may need to be a little bit more robust because you're providing opportunities for them to disseminate their work. And for you as a PI and the co-PIs to participate as well. If you're going to be on your home institution and working with engineering faculty or your physics faculty or chemistry faculty and having them serve as the research experts and having graduate students paying them a stipend, it's fair. That's a fair thing to do. Do they have to be listed as co-PIs? No, but can they be senior personnel on your particular proposal? Yes, and providing funding for them. And so this may take you a little bit to pull all the pieces together to identify all the collaborating partners who will be supporting this effort, unless you have your own lab that you can house everything there. And then what does professional development look like? Do you want to partner? Do you want a development? Do you want to partner with a nonprofit organization that does teacher professional development to do that? Do you need to provide funding for someone to go to the classrooms during the school year to observe the teachers who are going to be implementing these lesson plans into their curriculum, and to see how that goes? And so there's multiple ways in which you can do this. And we're not restricting you to one model versus the other, but really justify the model in which you're using, and that will be helpful. So are you aiming at this being a summer project and not an academic year project? And so for you to do the research experience, it typically they would be in the summer, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, maybe a bit, we got to think about our audience, right? We're talking about in-service teachers. And so 8 to 10 weeks is a lot to ask of a teacher who may need time to just decompress on the back end of the school year, and then kind of just get their mind right before the school year starts. And so thinking about all of those components, I think you need to be intentional when you design this experience for the in-service and the pre-service teachers. And so, and you don't want to overburden them even during the academic year. Jennifer, you want to unmute? I'm sorry.
Yes. So, I mean, if we instead, and I'm not saying we are, but I'm just thinking, if we only had pre-service teachers involved and we don't have any in-service teachers, right? And if we had some of these authentic research experiences where maybe they're working with biology professors and astronomy professor, I'm thinking of some projects there with astronomy, lots of things that can be done. Isn't it possible that this could be tied to some of their coursework? I mean, in terms of collecting research data.
No, because it needs to be separate from that, something that is specifically designed for them to do. So I thought where you were going towards, is it something, could they have like their own TA or G, like how you have graduate students who are working in labs during the academic year? That's where I thought you were going with your question. But could it be tied to a biology class that they already have a lab to, and they do something around that? No, it needs to be something that is different and authentically designed for this purpose.
Right. And I'm not trying to argue with you, but I just feel like that at times, I mean, truly, students are doing research during the academic year. They're not only doing it during the summer right now.
Right. So that's why I was saying, that's why I thought initially you were saying that they were working with they were working with a faculty member.
That is what I mean, like working with an astronomer collecting data. Like, for example, an astronomer is collecting data on a star that's about to explode in the Corona constellation, and he's collecting pre-data right now on it, and then he's going to collect post-data on it after it explodes. But I'm just saying that data doesn't need to, I mean, especially with astronomy, it's not, there are things to observe during the academic year and not just in the summer is what I'm trying to say.
Correct. I guess what had me with a little bit of pause is that you have attached to a course.
Okay,
right?
well,
And
we
so
can, all right.
that's different, right? So if you took that piece off of it and I guess, and you had them do undergraduate research as pre-service STEM teachers during the academic year, that's something that's authentic and different than a course. So I think we're saying the same things, but I think just looking at your question in the chat attached to a course is where we're like, oh no, we can't do that. So we don't want
Okay.
you to take a biology course and then just do this extra little piece and call that an authentic research experience. It has to be something that is different outside of the course. And so does that, I don't believe we say it has to be in the summer.
Okay, so it doesn't have to, I mean, it couldn't be an independent study then. You just don't want it to tied to coursework. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have it tied to coursework, and so we want it to be, because you would be essentially paying these students a stipend,
Right, that makes sense.
right,
Okay.
to do that work, and so, they would get a stipend and credit, so I think
Right, sure. Yeah, it's like double dipping. I understand. We don't want to do that. But you mentioned undergraduates. What if we have MAT programs and we have graduate students? Can they participate in this? And they're pre-service
it would
teachers.
be like your track 2 fellows, right? And so if they would qualify for a track 2, then yeah, they would be able to participate. Mhm.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And again, they don't have to, and I'm saying they would be your track 2 eligible fellows. So they don't have to be Noyce scholars. They do not have to be Noyce or scholars or fellows to participate.
But does that mean we would have to have a track 2?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, sorry, I'm just not familiar with this particular grant.
No, you're fine. This is the purpose of that. Is to
Okay.
make sure that you have those questions and if you look in the solicitation, it's not. We're still working on it because it's a new initiative, and so we want to make sure and get the feedback from you all about it would be helpful if. And so just having this dialogue about parameters of when. Summer exclusively, or can you have it in this? So those types of things are why we're opening, having these discussions.
All right, thank you.
So thank you.
So Allison asked a question. Did you want to, can you go off, you want to go off mic and then expand on that?
Yeah. So I was just asking, in terms of evaluation, are we evaluating like what the teachers or pre-service teachers are getting out of this research and experience, or are we evaluating the students in those teachers' classes and what they're learning from the teacher who taught them something that they got out of the research experience?
So you would be, and the reason why I'm pausing too is because it could be yes. Right, it could be a yes to all of them. So as the teachers themselves are designing their own, lesson plans, they may be collecting that level of data that you're saying. What do the students get out of it? And they could be reporting that back to you. And as they present their research at, NSTA or that type of thing, they can report that kind of data back. And so being intentional about maybe capturing that or having the teachers capture that may be one of the things that you do. But you're really focusing on those that you directly impact, which would be the teachers. And so really focusing on, what did they learn from the experience, what new knowledge, what new skills. And so that knowledge and skills could be that content knowledge or their research, whatever the research was around, focusing there, as well as whatever around the professional development that you provided. And how has that improved their skills and things of that nature. So it depends on your lens, but it's definitely easier to collect data from adults than it is from minors. So, I don't want you to feel that you've got to be in the weeds, so far down in the weeds, to capture data from the K-12 students. And, these are open for not just, for your for the K-12 students, I'll put it that way. So if you have, in-service experience for a research experience for in-service teachers that truly would be K-12. And so if you wanted to work with elementary school teachers to provide them with an authentic experience, you could do that as well.
And then your question, Allison, talked about measures of success. That would be tied to whatever your specific project objectives were. So that was, so I like Jennifer's answer. Pause. Yes. Like that was awesome. So, Allison, does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Do you have more questions? Sure, I think you can go to the next slide. We do have a few last minute things that we can just highlight some additional. You can go to the next slide. Conversation items that we have. And so there's some critical resources here, definitely the solicitation. There was a Dear Colleague letter that may be helpful around the research experience in STEM settings that you can explore, but we did add it to the solicitation. And some other resources that are available for you here. I keep talking about the PAPG, but definitely take a look at that. There's some guidance there on just for your proposal preparation. Next slide, please. Some other programs that may be of interest to you for those of you who are doing work in STEM teacher preparation or STEM education in general. Our IUs, we had a webinar on, that was our first one that we did to kick off this webinar series for this fiscal year. And we do have a focus in improving undergraduate STEM education where there is a focus on K-12 pre-service teachers because they're the undergraduate students. And so if you have interest in that, the webinar may or may not be posted now, but it'll be posted soon. STEM is a scholarship base similar to Noyce, but they are for our STEM majors, and it's an expansive version of a definition of STEM, but they cannot be Noyce eligible. So anything that's non-Noyce eligible STEM, STEM may be something you want to explore, and DRK12 is another program that focuses on providing support for pre-service and in-service teachers too. Next slide, please. And then here are our addresses, and we want to thank you. I didn't put all the team's email addresses. You may want to start with Josephine and I, and we can kind of send out if we are overwhelmed with your proposals. But I think this is a great opportunity for you to do something new in Noyce. If you had track 1, 2, or 3, or haven't been successful with track 1, 2, 3, or 4 capacity building, this may be an avenue that is better suited for your skills and maybe fit the need on your campus. Josephine and I can stay around a few more minutes. We can go into overtime, but I know we're at time. If you had more questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand or just unmute yourself, and we'll definitely be here to answer them. And thank you again for your interest in learning more. There's a dearth of STEM librarians. So STEM librarians, you may want to look at that one of the previous slides where I had DRK12, the Division of Research and Learning. They do more of the formal and informal learning opportunities. And so there's a space there with librarians, museums that may be better suited for your initiative. Noyce may not be it unless there's professional development around, a part of the professional development with STEM librarians, with teachers on how to use the resources in the library to help enhance research opportunities. So I think there could be some collaboration, but it would be kind of something you really would have to think through. But DRL may have better programs that are suited for that space.
And DRL is right next to us. So for example, you could, I wouldn't mind if you would maybe as a paragraph or so on what ideas you were thinking, and we could try to connect you with the DRL.
Oh, yeah. Yep. They're our friends.
Yeah, they're they're down the hall.
Any other questions? Richard, we'll allow you to bring us home, but we'll still stay around if needed. But I know you have your commercial that you need to say at the end too.
Yeah, so I know we're a few minutes past the hour and they offer to stay around, but I just want to say before we go, I'd like to thank our NSF colleagues, the rest of the IC team, and all of you who are able to join and participate in today's webinar. I mentioned this in the chat and we said, but a recording of the presentation will be posted on our website at nsfnoyce.org. That'll be either this week or next, and it'll be emailed to you as well, along with the slides. The slides will be more available, more immediate, but the recording will be available soon after. We also have a survey link, which my colleague Betty posted in the chat, and we'll be sending that via email. The survey should only take a few minutes, but we really appreciate your feedback, and it helps as we continue to do these series in the future. And as Jennifer mentioned, this session concludes our current NSF Noyce proposal preparation webinar series. Once again, thank you all for joining us today, and a big shout out to anyone who joined for any of our 4 sessions last week. I definitely saw some familiar names today, so it's been fun to see people stick around. And if you miss our sessions on the Noyce tracks or the IUS program, as Jennifer mentioned, that has the teacher prep focus, all those recordings will be posted on the Noyce website in days. And that's it from me. So I'll just say take care and happy Wednesday.